I don't really know what to say here. I don't know what to say to her.
It began softly, too softly almost. The cameras were rolling, the set was quiet, and the only noise filling the air was the soft buzz of the studio lights. Robyn Brown was perched on the couch, hands shaking in her lap. A box of tissues rested beside her, untouched. The producers had cautioned her that this interview would be tough, but no one anticipated what was going to happen next. Her eyes were bloodshot before the first question was even posed. "Robyn," the producer started gently, "reflecting back on all of it, the family, the fallout, do you think you could have done something differently?" She didn't reply immediately. She just breathed deep, gazed at the ground, and let a tear roll down her face. "You know," she whispered, her voice trembling, "people believe I did this on purpose, that I had wanted this conclusion. But I had not. I wanted to save us." Those words, "save us," lingered in the air like a ghostly echo. For years, Robyn was the favorite, the manipulator, the one who won Kody. But in that moment, under the bright glare of the studio lights, she didn't appear to be a winner. She appeared broken. The video cut between her interview and Kody's earlier that day. He sat crossed-armed and frustration carved deeply into his face. "Robyn's emotional," he stated. "She's always been emotional. But what people don't realize is she's emotional because she knows more than anyone else." It was the first indication, the first fissure, that there was something more behind her tears. In her interview, Robyn attempted to clarify things. "I went into this family thinking that it was founded on faith and unity," she explained. "What I entered was already broken. On the cam they were smiling, but off cam, it was chaos." She paused again, her throat working. "There were things Kody shared with me, things he said were between us, and I held them back. I thought I was keeping him safe, keeping us safe." Her fists bunched in her lap. "And now I can see what that protection really cost." The producers leaned in. "What do you mean, Robyn?" Her gaze darted to the camera, and for an instant she seemed to forget everyone was watching. "He made promises," she whispered. "Not just to me, to all of us. But some of those promises weren't real." Cut to flashbacks, glimpses from past seasons, now filled with fresh significance. Kody laughing along with the family, Robyn smiling at his side, Mary averting her eyes, Christine trying to smile. Every shot now resembled a memory constructed in denial. "After Christine left," Robyn went on, "Kody changed. He wasn't angry, at least not at first. He was frightened. Frightened of what people would see if they looked too deeply." Her voice became softer, her fingers trembling once more. "There's something he's keeping from everyone. Something he didn't want anyone to know. And I think Christine already knew it." The producer stood stock still. "You're saying Christine uncovered something before she disappeared?" Robyn didn't respond immediately. She grabbed for a tissue, wiped away tears, and whispered, "I don't know. Not yet." Then she got up and left set. The screen went dark, but the mic was still active. Her voice was barely audible in the distance, addressing someone off-screen. "If they investigate the finances, everything will come out. He instructed me not to speak. But how can I keep on lying?" The scene cut off abruptly, and when they aired it later, that line was never introduced to audiences. But those who were on set during the shoot attested that it did occur. It was one of the most hushed-about moments in TLC history. The show continued, but something was different. Robyn's meltdown wasn't emotion, it was guilt, and audiences started questioning what she was crying for exactly. Was it heartbreak? Or fear? As the following scenes played out, the dynamic tension between Kody and Robyn became impossible to conceal. Their interviews no longer jibed. One contradicted the other. Robyn asserted that she didn't know about certain money transfers, while Kody affirmed, Robyn was always part of every decision. The reality lay somewhere in between, just out of grasp. Christine, on the other hand, was keeping a low profile in Utah, re-establishing her life, off camera. But when questioned about Robyn's crying in an interview afterwards, she hesitated for a prolonged moment before uttering this. Sometimes people cry when they're sad, and sometimes they cry when they're scared. Her words circulated endlessly on fan boards, podcasts, and reaction videos. They cry when they're scared. The tone of the show shifted after that. TLC started hinting at something new. The truth unfolds. The teasers were darker, slower, with lots of lingering shots of Robyn sobbing and Kody turning away. It was emotional for viewers. For the Browns, it was war. By the end of part 1, Robyn's meltdown had become the focal point of a much bigger narrative. Fans argued over whether her tears were genuine or staged. But the people who knew her best, producers, former crew, even Christine herself, insisted something about this period felt different. She wasn't faking it. She was falling apart. And the reality behind those tears was only just starting to emerge. The storm didn't break with a thunderclap. It arrived in whispers, texts between producers, a late-night call from a field PA, a message left on a voicemail that no one was supposed to hear. Within 48 hours of Robyn walking off set, the crew knew two things. She was afraid of something specific, and that something had a paper trail. It started with a binder. Not a bank vault, not a dram shop safe. Just a fat, sun-bleached binder jammed between cookbooks on a shelf in the Brown household, where crews tended to stage interviews. One of the camera assistants saw it because a tab protruded that said, in bold black Sharpie, KNR. The letters meant nothing to him, but to somebody, they meant everything. Weeks prior, a field producer overheard a strained telephone conversation between Kody and a consultant in which those same letters were mentioned repeatedly. KNR will take care of it, Kody explained. Run all through KNR. The producer jotted it down without realizing why. Now the letters glared at them from a grocery store binder a few feet away from the lighting tripod. It should have meant nothing. But when the assistant went to push the tab back in and picked up the item, loose papers had slid forward just far enough to expose a header. KNR Holdings, LLC, Ledger Summary. He gulped, replaced the binder precisely as it had been left, and reported to his boss. The next morning, that shelf was bare. Robyn had cleaned up. In the meantime, Christine was in her Utah kitchen, frosting a lemon cake with her phone vibrating on the countertop. She dismissed most of it until she saw the name flash she had not seen in months. Janelle. The text was direct. You saw the promo? The truth unfolds? They're poking the bear. Brace yourself. Before Christine could respond, a second text came through. Also, do you remember KNR? Christine did. All at once. A bank trip she hadn't been invited on. A dismissive business thing. And then silence. Her hand shook and left a swirl of frosting ripped across the cake like a wound. TLC continued to shoot. Robyn consented to return, grudgingly, beautifully coiffed, her eyes puffier than before. Producers repositioned lights, mellowed the key, and asked if she was ready to carry on. I want to be clear, she told him, voice strained but level. I did not handle finances. Kody did. If money moved, it moved because he determined it had to. The producer nodded once and said, Did you ever hear the name KNR Holdings? Robyn blinked, a beat too long. I don't remember. The room dropped into a silence so absolute that the boom mic caught her swallow. The interview continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. Every answer sounded like it had to cross a bridge of second guesses. I'm not good with numbers, she tried. I was just trying to keep the family together. The words sat on the couch beside her like polite guests at a party where no one really knows each other anymore. Later that day, a young post-production story editor put on headphones to sift through B-roll sound. He heard the standard, crew talk, chair scratches, a sneeze that would later be cut. And then, beneath it, a hushed voice from down a hallway. Outside an interview room, two voices low and conspiratorial. Kody's, torn with frustration. I said, "We don't open that door." Robyn's barely audible. "They're going to ask about K&R. Kody once more. "Then you weep, Robyn. You weep and you tell them I took care of it." A hinge on a door squeaked. Footsteps. Quiet. The editor stopped. He wiped back and forth to make certain. He exported the clip, titled it blandly, "Room Tone 6C," and took his laptop down to a high-ranking producer who didn't shift at all. When it finished, she looked at the waveform for a very long time and then said, "Back this up to 2 drives. 1 remains here. 1 goes with you. And don't give it any name anyone would be interested in." By this point, the gossip had filtered through walls and into group texts. Crew members who had kept their heads down for years were now trading recollections. A shoebox full of receipts never submitted to accounting, a late payment of day rate from a strange account name, a courier envelope labeled "Hold for K" across the front. None of it was evidence, all of it was smoke. The call came when Janelle phoned Christine and didn't waste time on small talk. "I scrolled through old emails," she stated. "Do you recall when we were told the family account was skimpy and we'd have to suspend payments to Coyote Pass? That same week, a distribution was made to K&R. The subject line had read, 'Urgent.'" Christine pushed the phone tighter into her ear, like she could thrust herself across the signal and into Janelle's office. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I'm reading it," said Janelle. Paper crumpled. "Christine, it wasn't a mistake." That night, Christine lay awake. She stood, crept to the kitchen, and sat in the light of the stove clock tallying out a truth she'd feared to calculate. It wasn't neglect. It wasn't favoritism. It was engineering. She imagined the years spent apologizing for questioning, the years that she'd been labeled dramatic for demanding clarity, the manner in which the term family had been used as a rope. She put her forehead to the cool counter and laughed once without humor. "You always did hate math, Kody," she whispered to the dark. "But this equation is simple." Back on set, the producers asked for one more sit-down with Kody. He arrived hot with annoyance. "You've got your story," he said, throwing himself into the chair. "You want a villain? Fine. Make me the villain, but don't pull Robyn into this. She can't deal with it." The producer didn't bat an eye. "We're not pulling anyone," she answered calmly. "We're just chasing threads. What is K&R? Kody's jaw set. "Business," he said. "It's business." The producer paused. He leaned forward, finger poking the air. "You don't get to assume things about things you don't know. Families have complications. I was safeguarding assets. That's what leaders do." "Who were you trying to keep them away from?" she demanded. The question fell like a pin in a cathedral. Kody's mouth opened, shut, reopened. "From bad choices," he said at last. "From individuals who aren't thinking about the big picture." He glanced over the lens to the doorway, where there wasn't anyone standing. "From chaos," he breathed, as if he were thinking aloud. In the subsequent days, a script unfolded so unmistakably. Robyn wept, Kody growled, the producers pushed, the internet audience became archivists. Fans extracted old episode clips, freeze-framed documents on kitchen counters, zoomed in on names on envelopes, contrasted dates of tight budgets with latest furniture delivery spotted at the periphery of frames. They didn't know what they were demonstrating. They were certain it did matter. Then there was an email to a burner address the show maintained for tips. The subject line, "You didn't get this from me." There was a single image, from the side, a shadow of a hand falling over the bottom corner. The photo was of a laptop screen and a spreadsheet open on it. The header was, K&R Holdings, Transfers 2019-2021, XLSX. The first column of dates. The second, from Family Traditions LLC. The third, to K&R Holdings. The fourth, figures. The top producer glared until the figures became fuzzy. She sent it to legal, who responded with a tempered paragraph regarding verification and chain of custody. She sent it to herself at home anyway, printed it out, and slipped it into a manila folder marked Recipes. She stuck the folder in the back of a kitchen drawer between oven mitts that night. She didn't sleep well and woke up with the surety of someone who had just stashed a fire inside a woodhouse. All the while, Robyn's tears continued to flow, but something in them had shifted. In front of the camera, she no longer resembled so much a woman begging to be believed, but rather a woman begging herself to hold. At a break, a makeup artist touched under her eyes and whispered softly, "You don't have to carry this alone." Robyn gazed at her in the mirror, her eyes glassy. "But I promised," she breathed. "I promised him I would." The makeup artist remained silent. She smoothed powder beneath Robyn's left eye and allowed the silence to do what words could not. The episode summaries were rewritten. The Breakdown Begins was retitled as The Secret Unfolds. End cards were written with thoughtful phrasing. Bravery was balanced against liability by the network. Editors pieced a story together in edit. Bays illuminated by timelines and color scopes with no idea if the last pieces would even be permitted to be aired. On a drab afternoon, a courier envelope slid under Christine's front door. No return address. In it was a solitary flash drive and a sticky note with the two words, "Check dates." Christine flipped the drive over in her hand, small and light, and instantly as heavy as a life changed. She did not plug it in. Not yet. She waited until the house was still, brewed a cup of tea she did not consume, and placed the drive on the kitchen table between herself and all the decisions she had made. In Arizona, Kody walked a room that no cameras could penetrate. "We ride this out," he told the phone. "They won't air anything they can't prove." He waited, gaze on the window, red desert heat trembling outside. "No," he told it. "Robyn won't crack." A floor below, in a linen closet no one had touched in months, a forgotten binder moved on a shelf. The tab with 3 black letters was creased where a nervous hand had flattened it. By sunset, nothing had been settled. Everything had been initiated. The following morning, Christine inserted the flash drive into her laptop and waited for the files to materialize. A folder flashed on the screen, 3 letters, an ampersand, and a single final word that left her releasing a breath like a diver too long underwater. Undefined K&R Holdings, transfers. Read me first, TXT undefined. She clicked. The text. File opened with only 4 lines, each one typed in all caps as if whoever wrote it wanted the words to scream off the screen. "Stop asking questions. You're not ready for the truth. Check the email archives. He made me do it." Christine's hand went still on the mouse. She didn't breathe for what felt like an eternity. The hum of the refrigerator, the gentle ticking, of the clock on the wall. All sounds in the room seemed to recede beneath the gravity of those words. She spoke in a soft, almost involuntary whisper. "He made me do what?" Janelle came 30 minutes later. Christine pointed at the screen without speaking. Janelle furrowed her brow and huddled closer. "This wasn't for you," she said after a while. "This was intended as a warning away, but from whom?" Christine double-clicked the folders on the flash drive. They contained dozens of subfolders, transfers, scanned documents, and one labeled Personal. She paused, then double-clicked. A bunch of audio files opened, each dated. The most current one was titled, Our Tier Room Interview MP3. Christine hovered over it. "Tier room?" she said. Janelle nodded reluctantly. That's what the crew referred to the side room where they'd take Robyn when she would break down. That's where they continued filming when she was unable to stop crying. Christine double-clicked on the file. The room was full of static, Then Robyn's voice, gentle, shattered, but audible. I didn't want to do it. I didn't know that it would go so far. He told me that it was for the family, that it was just money transferred from one account to another. But then Christine asked questions, and he said to deal with it. He said to cry if anyone questioned it. Christine's eyes went wide. Janelle covered her mouth with a hand. I wasn't trying to lie, Robyn went on, crying now. But if they do find out, everything is going to fall apart. He told me it was safer if I lied, that everyone already thought of me as the manipulator. But I didn't transfer the money. I just signed the papers. Christine paused. The ensuing silence weighed more heavily than the words themselves. She's lying for him, Janelle whispered. Christine nodded slowly. Or she's held captive by him. Janelle walked back and forth in the kitchen, her words escalating. Christine, this is no longer emotional manipulation. This is fraud. He transferred funds through an LLC and used her as a prop. That's why she's sobbing. She's afraid. Christine stood, her tone low but resolute. Then we take it to the court. That night, Christine sent an email to their attorney, including only a screenshot of the folder. We have more than we anticipated. Call me in the morning. Later that evening, Robyn sat by herself in her Flagstaff living room, the television casting shadows on her face. Her phone rang, a text from Kody. Delete everything, now. She looked at it, hands trembling. Then she responded, I can't. They already know. There was no response. Only the flickering read status that appeared to taunt her from the screen. She let the phone fall onto the couch and buried her face in her hands. The cry that came out of her was not like any she'd allowed the cameras to capture. Not staged, not soft, but raw. The kind that escapes you when you know you couldn't take back what you'd already done. Outside, lightning flashed, briefly lighting up the family photos on the wall. Smiling faces locked in time, before all came apart. By morning, news had reached the production office of TLC. The audio had leaked. Not to the public, not yet, but to crew members. To editors. To lawyers. The executive producer summoned an emergency meeting. We can't broadcast this without checking it out, he said, pacing. But we can't bury it either. It's too explosive. One of the editors broke in. What if we just let the story unfold naturally? The audience has watched everything else blow up. Maybe this is where it finally all comes out. The producer shook his head. If this gets out, it's not just a plot, it's a criminal case. In the meantime, Kody appeared at Robyn's doorstep unexpectedly. The cameras were not there. He burst into the living room, yelling at the top of his lungs. What did you do? Robyn winced. I didn't do anything, Kody. They found it. The files, the tapes. He interrupted her. You were to erase it all. How could you be so reckless? She felt tears pricking at her eyes, but she didn't budge. You said to keep the family safe. I figured, safe? He snarled. You just took us down. Robyn stood, shaking but determined. No, Kody. You took us down when you lied to everyone. To me, to Christine, to Janelle, to the world. Kody's face wavered for the fraction of a moment. I was trying to defend what we created, he whispered. Robyn's head shook. You were defending yourself. For an instant, they only looked at one another. Years of love, anger, and regret distilled into a single crushing silence. Then Kody walked out the door. The screen door crashed shut behind him, ringing out through the vacant house like a gavel hitting a verdict. That evening, Christine got another text from a mysterious number. You think you've discovered the truth. You haven't. Janelle glanced over her shoulder at the message. He's getting desperate, she said. That means we're close. Christine nodded, but she couldn't quite clear the shiver running down her spine. Because although they had evidence, papers, tapes, witnesses, there was something different about that message. It didn't sound like Kody. It sounded like someone else was continuing to defend him. And that meant that the tale wasn't over. As the episode would eventually conclude, the camera panned on Robyn brushing away tears she couldn't quite keep at bay, muttering to herself, "They'll never get it." "None of them will ever get it." The screen went black. The leak didn't begin with a hacker. It began with fear. 2 days following Kody's eruption from Robyn's residence, the world began to sense something amiss. Anonymous messages began arriving in inboxes at the headquarters of TLC, at gossip sites, and even on Reddit, each with pieces of the same narrative. Screenshots of bank records, text snippets from contracts, brief video clips of raw audio. None of it stood on its own to prove anything, but cumulatively, they formed a very distinct picture. Money had been transferred. There had been deception, and someone within the Brown family wanted the world to know it. The production office of the show descended into chaos. Executives gathered in conference rooms behind closed doors. Lawyers pored over each episode, each raw interview, searching for what would now qualify as evidence. Editors were instructed to stand down. A temporary production pause was announced. But behind that corporate facade, panic was spreading fast. Christine learned the same way everyone else did, through a fan DM. Her phone rang constantly. Messages flooded in. "Christine, is this true? Did Kody actually move the money? Are you safe?" She clicked on one link, another. And there it was, a grainy, low-resolution screenshot of an email thread, one she'd never seen. At the top of the conversation, Kody's name. At the bottom, a forwarded message from someone named RB, with an attached spreadsheet named Account Reallocation 2023XLS. Her hands trembled. "It's out," she whispered. In Flagstaff, Kody paced his living room like a trapped animal. The blinds were drawn, the TV silenced, the air heavy with anticipation. Robyn sat on the couch in front of him, knees tucked up to her chest, eyes fixed on the floor. "They have it all," he grumbled, tugging on his hair. "All the files, all the emails. Someone betrayed us." Robyn's voice was little more than a whisper. "I didn't send anything." Kody spun on her. "Then who did, Robyn?" "Who, Christine?" "Janelle, do you think this is their revenge?" "Because it's working." Robyn winced at the sound of his voice. "Maybe it's someone from the crew. You yelled at them for years." "You think they wouldn't want payback?" He paused, puffed for breath, then jabbed at her. "Don't you dare turn this on me." She stared up at him with pink, puffy eyes. "I don't need to. You already flipped it on yourself." There was a moment of silence. Only the hum of the muted TV playing some old Sister Wives clip, a younger Kody smiling, teaching love and harmony. The irony seared. Kody finally collapsed into a chair, his face hidden in his hands. "They'll kill me," he whispered. "The network, the fans, everybody." Robyn looked at him, and for the first time her tears ceased. "Then perhaps," she whispered softly, "you should cease providing them with grounds to." Across town, Christine and Janelle sat side by side, this time in an attorney's office. Coffee and legal paper filled the air. An open folder lay on the table between them, packed with printed screenshots, financial transfers, and transcripts. The attorney worked through them with practiced serenity. "It's bad," he said at last, "but it's not hopeless. This leak actually works to your favor. It indicates a pattern of dishonesty." Christine folded her arms. "You mean it indicates he lied?" The lawyer nodded. "And that he diverted shared resources for personal benefit. If we can connect this to any payments from TLC, that's fraud." Janelle furrowed her brow. "And what happens if they sue the network?" He shrugged. "Then it goes federal." The room went quiet. Christine gazed at Janelle, her voice little more than a whisper. "I didn't want it to escalate into war." Janelle smiled wearily. "It's not war. It's the truth finally catching up." The attorney pushed a paper across the table. "It's time to come forward," he told them. "You both can either remain silent and allow the story to go haywire, or you can dictate the message." Christine gazed at the page, the reflection of her face dimly seen in the wood. "If we do this," she said slowly, "there's no going back." Janelle leaned forward, signing her name first. "We already crossed that line, Christine. Might as well tell the whole story." Later that night, TLC put out an official statement on social media. It was brief, chilly, and corporate. We know that there was unauthorized leaking of personal materials about sister wives. An internal investigation is underway. We are committed to transparency and ethical journalism. The internet went nuts. Comment boards full of thousands of fans clamoring for explanations. Reddit threads titled KNR Holdings The Sister Wives Scandal made trending lists. YouTube personalities took apart leaked videos frame by frame. Fans had been guessing for years that Kody was manipulative in his actions, but now they had evidence: receipts, bank statements, voice recordings. The facade of the perfect patriarch was broken. Inside the Brown house, Kody's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Every call was another crisis. Producers, lawyers, PR reps, even his older kids. He ignored them all until one notification made him pause. It was from an unknown number. Just 2 words. "You're finished." He stared at it for a long time, chest tight, pulse pounding. Then his phone buzzed again. A new message. "Check your email." He stalled, then pulled it open. One attachment, an audio file with the title "The Last Tape." He hit play. A few seconds of static. Then a voice familiar, his own, filled the air. Furious, uncensored, made without his consent. "You think they'll ever let me go?" They can't. None of them can. I created their lives. Without me, they're nothing. He cut off the playback, trembling. The color left his face. Whoever had leaked this wasn't just revealing his financials. They were revealing his soul. Christine heard it also. Someone had posted the clip onto TikTok mere minutes after the leak. It was all over now, spreading at a rate faster than people could control. She sat in silence, listening as the sound trickled from her phone. Janelle shut it off halfway through. "He did this to himself," she said. Christine shook her head slowly. "And yet, I still pity him." "Don't," Janelle said sternly. "He never pitied us." But Christine couldn't help it. For all the rage, all the betrayal, there was still that resonance of who they used to be. The man she had loved once, now disintegrating for everyone to see. Back at Robyn's, a single lamp illuminated the room. She sat by the window watching the storm clouds roll in. Her phone vibrated. A voicemail. She hesitated, then hit play. It was Kody, his voice cracked, broken. "They're coming for me, Robyn, for all of us. Don't talk to anyone. Don't open the door for cameras. They'll twist everything. You're the only one who can fix this." She deleted it. For the first time in years, she didn't cry. Instead, she whispered to the empty room, "I'm done fixing you, Kody." And then, a knock at her door. She froze. The knocking came again, louder this time. She stood, her heart racing, and looked through the peephole. It wasn't Kody. It was a man in a suit, holding an envelope. "Mrs. Brown?" He called through the door. "I'm here on behalf of the court." Robyn opened the door just enough to take the envelope. He nodded politely, then turned to leave. Her fingers trembled as she tore it open. Inside was a single document, a subpoena. At the bottom, a bold heading read, "Brown vs. Brown, Civil Case Number 30215. Defendant, Kody Brown. Witness, Robyn Brown." She slumped into a chair, looking at the words as tears welled up in her eyes once more. But this time they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of relief. Because finally the truth was out, and there was nothing to be done about what happened next. The courtroom was quiet. Reporters occupied the benches. Cameras lined the back of the courtroom, and the murmur of hushed conversation echoed off the marble floors. It wasn't a day of filming Sister Wives. It was life now, and no one could shout, "Cut." Kody Brown sat at the defendant's table, his hands folded tightly in front of him. Something was being said in his ear by his lawyer, but Kody wasn't paying attention. His eyes were on the door. He knew whom it would be. And then it swung open. Christine and Janelle stepped side by side, calm, collected. They didn't say a word, didn't even glance in his direction. Behind them stood Robyn, pale-faced, red-eyed, but chin held high. The courtroom hummed immediately. The fact that all 3 of the women were standing together again was sufficient to rock the air. Christine testified first. Her voice was quiet but firm. "It's not about the money," she told the judge, her eyes direct. It's about betrayal. It's about someone who created an empire on love and trust, and used both as weapons. Kody shifted restlessly in his seat. His jaw clenched. The prosecutor set out the evidence: bank transfers, contracts, emails, and finally, the audio recordings. Each recording packed the courtroom with shards of truth Kody could no longer spin. Every lie he'd uttered, every excuse he'd fabricated came back in stereo. When his private tape played back, "They can't leave me. Without me, they're nothing." He winced visibly. Robyn covered her face with her hands. Christine didn't blink. Outside the courthouse, fans congregated behind barriers, waving signs. Some were justice for Christine, others, Kody lead. The world had divided up, and for once, the divisions were obvious. Upon the inside, the defense attempted to portray Kody as misunderstood, overwhelmed by fame and pressure, but the harm was accomplished. Every single testimony from the females tore the image he'd built apart piece by piece. Janelle's are the most hurtful words. He wasn't just the head of the family, she told us. He was the gatekeeper of our trust, our money, and our lives. We built everything together, and when he felt it slipping, he tried to control what he couldn't love anymore. Even the judge was shaken, then Robyn. For years, she'd been painted as the devoted wife, the glue that kept the family together, or frayed it apart, depending on whom you spoke to. This time, though, she didn't weep for sympathy. She wept for truth. "I covered for him," she explained, her voice shaking. "I lied to cover the family's backs. But each lie created a wall that drove us apart, and I woke up one morning and I didn't recognize myself anymore. I thought I was rescuing him, but I was assisting him to hide." She looked over at Kody, who gazed down at the table. "You told us we were all one big family," she went on, "but you only ever meant it when it was convenient." Her words hung in the hushed courtroom. Even the reporters ceased typing. Kody's time came last. He rose, adjusted his suit, and for a moment it seemed like he'd be speaking from his heart. He blew up instead. "You all wanted this," he bellowed. "You wanted to make me the bad guy. I gave it all, everything, to this family, and you returned it by being unfaithful and lying to me." The judge struck the gavel. "Mr. Brown, you will rein yourself in." But Kody didn't relent. They wanted fame over faith. They exploited me for the cameras, the money, and now they play victim. Christine's eyes welled with soft tears, but she said nothing. She didn't have to. The louder Kody screamed, the more obvious the truth. This wasn't a leader standing up for himself. This was a man losing it, in real time before the world. When court recessed, the verdict was not yet in. At least not in the courthouse. But in the court of public opinion, the verdict had already been rendered. Christine went out ahead, her head held high. Janelle then followed, and Robyn, reluctantly but firmly. The flash of cameras, the bellowed questions from reporters, but the women did not falter. They walked in step toward the parked car, the three women standing backlit against the warm sun of the late afternoon. Inside, Kody sat by himself at the defendant's table, vacant. The judge was gone. The attorneys departed. His phone vibrated with texts he did not read. The quiet surrounding him was startling. He reached for the family photograph that had been introduced as evidence before, all of them smiling, years prior, when everything still appeared perfect. His thumb grazed Christine's face, then Janelle's, then Robyn's. He spoke nearly to himself. How did it make it this far? And then he laughed, soft, bitter, empty. That evening, Christine sat on her porch, observing the sunset over the hills of Arizona. Her phone rang. "Janelle." "It's done," said Janelle. "The network's eliminating him. They're rebranding the show." Christine smiled weakly. "Good," she said. "Perhaps now it can finally be healing rather than surviving." "What about you?" asked Janelle. Christine looked at the horizon. "I think I'm ready to start over. For real this time." They talked until the stars came out, about life, about peace, about the strange freedom of letting go. Meanwhile, at home at Kody's, he sat in darkness. No cameras, no family, no commotion. Quiet. On the table before him was an envelope from his lawyer, the last word of the court's next hearing. He did not open it. Instead, he picked up his phone and started to type out a message. "You think it's over, but you don't know everything." He hesitated, then deleted the message. But his own image in the black window was smiling. Not with happiness, but with something colder. Something not resolved.